Welcome into the first grade release show of the 2025 NFL season here on the PFF NFL show. Max Chadwick alongside Dalton Wasserman here, breaking down every single game from the first week of preseason. Dalton, it's kind of a half grade release show. It's not the full breaking down every game, why every team lost the game or won the game. More biggest takeaways from some of the rookies we saw and some of the biggest storylines from the 16 preseason games we saw.
Absolutely, and there's no shortage of them, right? And obviously some people are going to overreact to some things on the good side and some on the bad side, and having to remember, I feel like the phrase "it's just preseason" gets used even a little too often this time of year, but certainly no shortage of storylines. I think we've got some good quarterback battles. We had a lot of rookies that played well, and I think a lot of stories that are going to continue throughout this preseason and into week one of the regular season.
Definitely want to remind you guys, all these grades are available to you guys in the PFF Plus subscription right now at subscribe.pff.com if you want to follow along for all 16 of these games. Let's dive right in with the first game, the Indianapolis Colts against the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens winning that one 24-16. Let's go over the highest graded players, starting off with the Indianapolis Colts. Their highest graded player was their safety, Alex Johnson, with a 94.9 grade. Next up was linebacker Joe Bacci at 94.7. Josh Sills, the guard, 86.2. Isaiah Land, the edge rusher, also an 86.2. And how about that guy right there, the first-round pick for the Colts, Tyler Warren, with a 78.4 grade in his first game in the NFL. Let's go over to the Ravens with their highest-graded players. Their highest-graded player was Andrew Voorhees, who's probably going to be taking over at one of the starting guard spots with Baltimore this year, 92.3. Jay Higgins, the rookie linebacker, 88.1. Chandler Martin, another linebacker, 86.7. And another linebacker in Trenton Simpson at 85. And then your guy, Dalton, rookie receiver LaJohntay West, your former FAU great in Colorado, 83.9 right there. What stands out to you, though, from this first preseason game? We've got to talk about probably the biggest story, which is Anthony Richardson against Daniel Jones for that starting quarterback job in Indianapolis.
Yeah, and Richardson getting hurt, taking a sack, dislocating his pinky, only got to throw 3 passes in this game before he had to exit, and Daniel Jones coming in. Now, Jones didn't look, I would say, fantastic, but there were also 4 drops that really dragged down his completion percentage. He was 10 for 21, should have been 14 of 21, and what you see from Jones is exactly what you get, a guy who within the box, within that 15 to 20-yard range, can at least manage the offense. An 80.6 passing grade on throws under 20 yards, 0 for 3 on deep balls. You're getting the basically exact opposite from Anthony Richardson when he plays, is that he's got the cannon for an arm. He's going to make big-time throws at a high rate, but also a lot of mistakes. And the accuracy, we really didn't even get to see much of Richardson. He completed 2 of his 3 passes. There was a nice throw to A.D. Mitchell on the sideline, but it seems that, the consensus is that he's the one who made the mistake in protection. He should have been hot and took the sack, looking to the wrong side of the field. I just think now that even Shane Steichen has said that Daniel Jones is going to start this coming preseason week 2, it feels like Jones, for various reasons, I don't want to say he's taken a stranglehold of the job because he's not great, but it feels to me like he's the favorite to be the starter right now because Richardson's inconsistencies and these sorts of mistakes, you just can't have them in your offense, right? Whereas if you have Daniel Jones, a guy who is just capable of completing passes underneath, that's all Shane Steichen is asking for. When you've got weapons like Josh Downs, like Michael Pittman, like Tyler Warren, if you can just complete that and run the RPOs the way they're supposed to be run and run the football well as an offense, then you just need a fundamentally sound quarterback. So I really do think coming out of this week, for multiple reasons, that Jones is the favorite to take this job.
Yeah, Daniel Jones had a 72.3 passing grade, which is, overall pretty solid. He was very on time and accurate. And unfortunately, yes, we only got 5 dropbacks total from Anthony Richardson before he dislocated his pinky. Now, fortunately, he is already practicing again, so it's not like it's going to be a long-term injury for Richardson. But it wasn't very pretty for Richardson. Honestly, his game still lacks anticipation, I would say, right now. On a 3rd and 7, he took way too long getting off his first read, missed an open Ashton Dulin that's led to a turnover-worthy play for Anthony Richardson. And then you mentioned it, the play where he got blown up by David Ojabo was actually his fault, even though it was an unblocked rusher coming at him. David Ojabo was coming off the edge. Richardson was looking to the left side of the field. Should have been looking to the right side of the field where his hot routes were and get rid of that football quickly because the offensive line was doing their job protecting to the left of the field. Ojabo came off the right, and Richardson's way too long looking to the left side of the field. So his game is just, it still seems like it's raw in year 3 now. And I'm with you, man. I really think in a pivotal year 3 now for Shane Steichen, he's probably going to go with a more solid quarterback in Daniel Jones.
I think if you want a guy in this offense, in an offense that's so predicated around RPOs and winning after the catch, you just need someone who can complete passes within about a 15-yard box. Daniel Jones can do that. We're going to see him start next week. Richardson in preseason week 2 is going to have probably one more shot, one more extended look in game action to try to win this job. But I think Jones has the inside track.
Let's shout out Andrew Voorhees, too, the highest graded player for Baltimore in this game. 0 pressures allowed, 89.9 run blocking grade, too. He had a really, really solid game, in a game where Daniel Falele, the other incumbent starter at guard, didn't look great, honestly. But Andrew Voorhees had a very strong game, which is huge because Baltimore's starting left guard spot is completely up for grabs right now. He seems to be taking stranglehold of that job.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to see him as their highest graded player. That left guard competition is wide open. Falele's still probably going to be the right guard, but entering the final year of his contract. If Voorhees, and they drafted him to kind of be a project coming off the injury, knowing he was going to miss his rookie year after suffering a knee injury his last year at USC. But if he can come in and play anything close to this, or even just as an average starter at left guard, you've got a really positive development there after losing Patrick McCarry to free agency.
I want to shout out to Mike Green and JT Tuimoloau. Both had really good games in their first games as rookies. Mike Green especially had a 33% pass rush win rate in his first preseason game. An outrageous bend. There was one photo, don't know if you saw, where he was turning the corner and you could see his ankles like almost touching the turf, and he still turned the corner and got a pressure. Just outrageous bend from Mike Green. Obviously, he fell in the draft with some off-field concerns, but if he stays, clean off the field and he becomes the player that everyone thought he could be coming out of Marshall, Baltimore, we mentioned before in the preview, their edge rushers is really their one kind of weakness on defense. If they can get a first-round caliber player like Mike Green in the second round, that could be a steal for them.
He was a top 20 talent, no question.
Yeah.
I had him actually as the second-best edge defender in this class. It's just, again, the off-field things that had him drop into the second round. But if he adds even situationally 20 to 25 snaps a game of pass rush ability like that, I think it does change the dynamic of the Ravens' defense on passing downs.
All right, let's move on to the next game, which is the Bengals against the Eagles. The defending Super Bowl champions started off 1-0 in the preseason with a 34-27 victory over Cincinnati. Let's go over the highest graded Bengals right now. Their highest graded player was Jamar Chase with a 94.7 grade. Another guard. This is huge for the Bengals. Dylan Fairchild, talk about him in a second. 89.5 grade for the rookie in his first game. Then we got Joe Burrow with an 88.7 grade. Oren Burks with an 85.7 grade as well. And then Muma Njongmedo with an 82.3 grade, the edge rusher for Cincinnati. Let's go over to Philadelphia with their highest grade players in this game. Quarterback Tanner McKee, 88.8 grade. Shout out Mike Renner right there. Cornerback Tariq Castro-Fields, 83.6. Patrick Johnson, 82.2. Darius Cooper, the wide receiver, 79.9. And Drew Kendall, the center, 78.3. So obviously Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow are very good at football.
Yeah,
I think we kind of knew that, Dalton. Anything else that stands out to you?
No, I mean, I think first that right there is that it is a big story that the starters were playing in the preseason for the Cincinnati Bengals, because they've lost 11 of their last 12 games in week 1 and 2 of the season the last 6 years. So they're trying to get off to a faster start. They really need to. They've got a winnable game week 1 against the Cleveland Browns, and they need to win that and get off to a better start in September. And I think that was the entire point of emphasis. You almost feel bad for some of those backup DBs and guys like that for the Eagles who walk into their first preseason game and all of a sudden, there's Burrow and Chase here across from. But the other big story is the guy right in between him on the grades there, and that's Dylan Fairchild. He was the starting left guard in this game. Really terrific performance here. 81.2 pass blocking grade, no pressure allowed. 84.9 run blocking grade, which we don't see very often from Cincinnati Bengals offensive linemen in recent years. 3 positively graded run blocks. I think Fairchild and his development, we were a little surprised that he was a third-round pick. We thought maybe he would go a little bit later, but if he can be an immediate starter for the Bengals, and at least a decent one as that, honestly, with the way Burrow operates, all you're asking for from these Cincinnati offensive linemen, especially the guards, if they can grade something like even a 70 as starters for this team, playing 17 games, that's a massive improvement. This was the lowest graded group of guards in the NFL last year. If Fairchild even comes in his rookie year and he's an average starter, that's a massive success for him in his first season.
Yeah, Bengals offensive line really, really struggled last year. They had the 4th worst run blocking grade in the NFL and the 4th worst pass blocking grade in the NFL, and they drafted Dylan Fairchild to try to help turn around that unit, and he looked really good in his first preseason game against Philadelphia. Well, shout out Tanner McKee here, too. Tanner McKee was the highest graded Eagle in this game. And he's kind of in a battle, I would say, right now with Kyle McCord, the 6th-round pick for Philadelphia. And also Dorian Thompson-Robinson is in that quarterback room, too. But Tanner McKee looks really good. He actually played a little bit last year, and he looked pretty good when he had to play last year, too. But 85.4 passing grade, 91.3% adjusted completion rate. Basically, he's on target for about 91% of his passes in that game, and 2 big-time throws, too. He seems to be really taking hold of that backup quarterback job behind Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I think that's big when you think about them trading away Kenny Pickett to the Cleveland Browns and trying to find a young backup quarterback who can operate if Jalen Hurts. And we've seen Jalen Hurts at times, as much as he runs the ball, sometimes he'll tweak an ankle or something like that, where you need somebody else for a start or two. And McKee, I think the 2 things for the most part, he throws the ball on time and he's willing to attack downfield. 91.6 passing grade on 10-plus yard throws in this game. The big thing about this Philly passing game, when you have A.J. Brown or you have Devontae Smith and they see press man coverage, let it fly. And obviously those 2 guys didn't play in this game, but when they do in the regular season, that's really the best part of this Eagles offense is taking advantage of single coverage. A.J. Brown was the highest graded receiver against single coverage last year. So Tanner McKee, I think, showed a nice understanding of when to attack those one-on-one matchups and just let it rip downfield and see where it goes.
Before we move on to the next game, this injury did not happen in the game. We should talk about it. Landon Dickerson got hurt in practice in Philadelphia. He got carted off with looked like a right knee injury. He's going to get MRI today, so hopefully get more news later on today from Landon Dickerson. But a Pro Bowl left guard for Philadelphia, potentially suffering a serious injury to his knee. Dalton, what does that do to Philly's offensive line right now?
Well, he's their best interior player. He's one of the best guards in the NFL. And if now you're talking about Dickerson being out for any extended period of time, you're already having a pretty open competition at right guard, right? There's some guys, you have Kenyon Green, who also, I believe, got injured this past week. You've got guys like Matt Pryor, who came over from the Bears. But if you've now got issues at both guard spots, plus Cam Jurgens is a decent center, but he was their lowest graded offensive lineman last year. All of a sudden, you don't want to have these interior issues, especially for a team that wants to run the ball as much as they do. So having Dickerson out of the lineup for any extended period of time would be a major loss for them. Look, it's arguably the best tackle duo in football with Mailata and Johnson, but if we have this many questions now in the interior, it is suddenly a weakness for this team if Dickerson's out.
Right now, Tyler Steen is projected to start at right guard and then Landon Dickerson at left guard, but if Dickerson goes down, Kenyon Green, who they traded for, could start. Former first-round pick was kind of a bust in Houston. And then Matt Pryor, who I thought was a very underrated player last year in Chicago. I think he had a top 10 pass blocking grade in the NFL at guard. But one of those two will start. So all of a sudden you have maybe Tyler Steen and Kenyon Green, or Tyler Steen and Matt Pryor. So that changes a lot when Dickerson is one of the better guards in football. If he's out for an extended period of time, and hopefully he's not, we'll get more news hopefully today from his MRI. But that could be huge for a Philadelphia Eagles offensive line that was the best in the league last year. Obviously, Mekhi Becton left for the Chargers. You're already replacing him, and now you may be replacing your other starting guard in Landon Dickerson, too. All right, let's move on. Before we move on, actually, Shamar Stewart, I want to mention right now, he had a 68.4 grade. Obviously, not a lot of practice time for him considering his long holdout. He looked explosive, I thought, off the edge. Still raw as a pass rusher, which is kind of obvious from his tape at Texas A&M, too, though. 58.3 pass rush grade in this game against the Eagles. He kind of looked uncomfortable on stunts, in my opinion, in that game too. But he did look explosive off the edge, which is really good news to see because Shamar Stewart, his main calling card coming out of Texas A&M was how freaky of an athlete he was.
Well, how freaky an athlete, and I thought he looked a lot better in run defense than as a pass rusher, which was the case last year at Texas A&M as well. I think even if he comes in this year and as he's developing as a pass rusher makes an early impact on early downs in run defense, I don't see any issue with that. Obviously, they're going to need an elite pass rusher, and there's one that they're still waiting to give a contract extension to, but we'll get to that later. I think Stewart, to me, in run defense is where that's really going to be his calling card early in his career while he's still developing the arsenal.
Let's move on to the next preseason game. That is the Raiders against the Seahawks, which ended in a tie. Both teams scored 23 points. There is no overtime in preseason, so it ended in a tie right there. Let's go over the highest graded players, starting off with the Las Vegas Raiders. Linebacker Jamal Adams. Yes, that Jamal Adams was their highest graded player with an 89.8 grade. The former safety, now playing linebacker for Las Vegas. Laki Tassi, the guard, 84.6. Kaya Blue Kelly with an 83.6 grade. The cornerback. Cam Miller, the quarterback, 80.8 grade. And then Alex Bachman, the wide receiver, 80.2. Let's go over to Seattle with their highest graded player, starting off with their rookie tight end, Nick Callerup, with a 90.8 grade. Mike Norris, a D tackle, 87.2. Jared Ivey, the rookie edge rusher, with an 84.4 grade. Nehemiah Pritchett, the corner, 82.7. And edge rusher Connor O'Toole with a 81.6 grade. What was the biggest takeaway you had, Dalton, from this game?
I'm going to start on the Seattle side, and the one thing we're going to be watching heavily this year from a bunch of their young players, their interior offensive line. And their first-round pick, Gray Zabel, he played 20 snaps, all at left guard. If we're projecting out from that snap count, it's probably going to be Olu Oluwatimi playing center for them during the season. But Zabel playing left guard, looked solid, looked the part. I thought he fit in well with Clint Kubiak in that outside zone scheme. Zabel's really athletic. His footwork is really good. No pressures allowed. 3 positively graded run blocks on the way to a 79 run blocking grade. So I think what you have with Zabel, if they're going to play him at guard, this is what you want him to look like. This is what Clint Kubiak is going to want him to look like. Sound outside zone blocking, good enough pass protection. It's a young unit in there trying to protect Sam Darnold. Obviously, they're going to be challenged heavier when they see starters in the regular season. There's a lot of young players, but the cornerstone of it right now is their first-round pick out of North Dakota State, Gray Zabel. He's off to a good start.
He looked explosive on the move as a run blocker, which is not surprising considering how athletic he was coming out of North Dakota State. And then I think in pass blocking, he got knocked backwards pretty badly on his first rep, but after that, he recovered really nicely and played really well in pass pro the rest of the game, too. So, yeah, very encouraging stuff from Gray Zabel in his first game, the first-round pick for Seattle. And Seattle's interior offensive line was among the worst in the NFL last year. They need him to really come in and be a difference maker on that offensive line. I thought Torrey Horton looked pretty good, too, for Seattle, the rookie receiver out of Colorado State. He had a few nice plays in that game, including a touchdown grab where he bounced off a couple tackles, too. Very physical receiver. Dante Thornton, the Raiders rookie receiver, kind of looked a little inefficient, I thought, as a route runner and try to struggle to gain separation out there, but he still has great size and speed and might be a starting receiver for Las Vegas this year. And then obviously the Raiders' first-round pick, the guy who will be going very high in a lot of fantasy football drafts, Ashton Ginty, only had 3 carries for -1 yard. He made a defender miss in the backfield, a nice spin move, but still lost yardage on that carry. The Raiders' offensive line wasn't really getting much push in that game either, so not a lot of takeaways from Ashton Ginty in that one. Again, don't hit the panic button on Ashton Ginty at all for only 3 carries, but it was still worth mentioning considering he was a number 6 overall.
It wasn't the Raiders' starting offensive line by any means. There were two likely starters in there. Jordan Meredith actually playing center and Jackson Powers Johnson playing guard, but that wasn't the Raiders' starting offensive line. I think once he gets behind the starters, it's going to look a lot better. I wouldn't judge Ginty very much in these 3 weeks at all. I know there's obviously some backs who are going to make some highlight plays, but they weren't run blocking very much when he was in there. So I wouldn't worry about Ginty. And the other side on the Raiders story, it's why I wanted to highlight him as their highest graded player. How about Jamal Adams playing linebacker? I'll be honest with you, especially in run defense, it looked pretty natural. And honestly, I think, you've got some guys, Landon Roberts, Devin White, Jermaine Pratt. Got a lot of guys who have been kind of struggling lately at linebacker, and now they're all in the Raiders trying to win jobs. The way he looked in this game, it wouldn't shock me at all if Jamal Adams got some regular season playing time at linebacker. All of a sudden, you take him away from playing safety. He's had some injuries over the years, and now he's playing linebacker, but he looked athletic. He knew how to shed blockers. We know he knows how to shed blockers with his ability as a pass rusher, and he got a pressure in this game. I think this could be a fun story to watch when it comes to how much playing time he could get with this team at linebacker.
Yeah, the former All-Pro safety used to be one of the best safeties in the NFL with the Jets. Then ironically with the Seahawks too when he got traded there. And now he's with the Raiders as a linebacker. He still has something to tank, I think, left in the tank, which after a great game like that. But yeah, tie in Raiders Seahawks at 23-23. The game that everyone's talking about right now is up next here. That is the Browns against the Panthers. Browns winning this game 30-10. Let's go over their highest graded players, starting off with Cleveland. Their highest graded player was a rookie, not Shador Sanders, Carson Schwessinger, their second-round pick, the linebacker, 91.4 grade. Luke Floria, the wide receiver, another rookie actually, 90.9. Cameron Thomas, the edge rusher, 90.7. Brendan Bates, the tight end, 89.4. And then Nick Needham, the corner, 84.9. Let's go over to Carolina with their highest graded players, starting off with their rookie edge rusher, Nick Scorton, 91.8 grade. D-tackle Bobby Brown III, 91.5. Another D-tackle, Sam Roberts, 89.5. Ikem Ekwonu, the former first-round pick, offensive tackle, 85.8. And Bryce Young was really good out there, too, with an 85.1 grade. But Dalton, a guy we didn't even mention in the top 5s that everyone's talking about right now, what did you see from Browns' 5th-round pick Shedeur Sanders in his first game at quarterback.
I'll be honest, I think we saw a lot of the same Shedeur Sanders that we saw at Colorado. He was poised under pressure. He was accurate when he had enough space to throw the football. There were a couple misses. I think overall I would give this performance about a B+, and Shedeur even said so himself. There's some things to get better with, but considering the lack of practice reps, playing under center at a much higher rate than he ever did in college, Max, he only took 66 reps under center in his 4 years of college football, so I think getting used to that in Kevin Stefanski's system, look comfortable in play action, 88.6 play action grade, 88.8 PFF grade against the blitz. I think those two things really shined for Sanders, and even the ability to improvise a little bit, even though he's not the best athlete. I just thought he managed the whole situation well, right? At no point did it look like, man, I haven't gotten many reps, and he's speeding things up. The game never looked too fast for him. I thought it was just, for as much as we've watched him on the college show for the last couple of years, I thought it looked like same old Shedeur. And obviously there's a couple misses, but 2 big-time throws, no turnover-worthy plays, just a clean performance from him. And Kevin Stefanski even said, look, the situations were valuable. He got a lot of reps this week. He's going to get a lot of reps next week. I think all of a sudden he's put himself at least in consideration for QB2 on this team, considering the injuries with Dylan Gabriel and Kenny Pickett and the way he played and managed this game. I'm curious to see if he gets at least some reps with some higher level players on this roster this week, but he's going to play this week. And I don't know that this team is going to be inclined to play Joe Flacco at all in the preseason. He's got a chance, I think, to win this backup job.
Yeah, he does, absolutely. He started off shaky a little bit, but he really improved on the stretch. I thought of that game, the 79.8 PFF grade, 2 big-time throws. He still had a 3.4 second average time to throw, so the pocket presence is still a little shaky. Took a bad sack early on in the game, but after that, man, great accuracy, got really comfortable, looked like in the offense. He showed the potential of being a starting quarterback in the NFL. So Shedeur Sanders, I was very, very encouraged by what I saw from him in his first preseason action for the Cleveland Browns. Nick Scorton looked really disruptive out there, too. The 2nd-round pick for the Panthers, who I thought could have been a 1st-round pick, the edge rusher out of Texas A&M. 90.6 pass rush grade for him out there. And then Carson Schwessinger, the highest graded Brown in this game, 91.4 grade with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah out for the entire season. They need Schwessinger to step up and be a starting caliber linebacker for them. And at least in his first preseason game, he looked pretty good.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you got a lot of great developments from this game, despite the score from both teams, right? When you look at, you mentioned the Browns and Schwessinger, they need linebackers in the worst way, especially with Jordan Hicks retiring recently. Schwessinger played 13 snaps, had 6 tackles and 4 stops. I mean, that's just a ridiculous night for such a short stint out there. Dylan Sampson, too, I thought had a couple of nice carries. He could be an important player with Quinshon Judkins' legal situation. Then on the other side, I think first and foremost, that was the same confident Bryce Young that we saw down the stretch last season.
Yep.
I think he's got total control of this offense. It was a terrific go route to Teteroa McMillan, which I think you're going to see a lot this year. McMillan also dropped a pass in the end zone that he should have caught, but Young throwing with anticipation, making plays outside of the pocket, just the overall confidence. And then a big thing I'm looking for with this Carolina team is the pass rush production. Bobby Brown was really good. Nick Scorton, like you mentioned, Princely Umanmielen had a solid night. I think when you look at those two things, the quarterback and the defensive line, those two things producing at a level like that across the whole season, that's when you start to have some hope for the Carolina Panthers.
And even the drop by Teteroa McMillan was still elite anticipation from Bryce Young to even get that ball in there in the first place, right? So it was McMillan's fault that he didn't turn around quickly to catch that touchdown pass, but Bryce Young put it between 2 defenders, and if he waited a quarter of a second longer, it probably would have been picked off, right? So it was elite anticipation from Bryce Young. He just looks so comfortable in that offense right now.
Inside and outside of the pocket. I think that's what it was more than anything. The confidence, the ability, and just the willingness to make throws into tight windows like that. His first year and change in the NFL, he wouldn't even tried that throw. Yeah. Guaranteed, he wouldn't even tried it. He wouldn't even tried the go ball that he completed earlier on that drive to McMillan. Now that he's got a target like that he can go to a high volume target with a 6'5" frame who can jump out of the gym, I think Bryce Young is only going to get more confident as time goes on. We saw it the second half of last year with a team that was last in the league in receiving grade,
right,
mind you. So now you've got a team, and the other guy too, I'm going to point out, who caught the touchdown, Jalen Coker, I think is getting better every week too. I really like the way Jalen Coker's developing. You have Adam Thielen. Young's got weapons to work with, and he keeps slinging it into tight windows and complete passes.
You're hoping last year's first-round pick, Xavier Legette, can develop a little more too. He got in a fight in that game.
He throws a good right hook, but we need you on the field, Xavier. We need you out there.
But that touchdown to Jalen Coker was also just Bryce Young so in command. We saw it time and time again at Alabama where he'd be redirecting receivers' routes mid-play. He did that on that play with Jalen Coker as he's rolling out to the right, directed him over to the left side of the field and made a perfect pass in the back of the end zone too. So yeah, Bryce Young, I'm really excited. I'm really encouraged for his year 3 in Carolina. All right, let's go up next to the next game. That is the Patriots against the Commanders, and the Patriots walloped the Commanders. 48-18 was the final score of that game. Let's go over the highest graded Commanders, starting off, though, with their safety, Jeremy Reeves, with an 87.6 grade. Edge rusher, Jalen Holmes, 82.4. Rookie cornerback Trey Amos with an 80.5 grade. Wide receiver Ja'Cory Brooks, another rookie, 80.1 grade. And then Noah Igbenogany with a 79.8 grade, the corner. Let's go over to the Patriots with their highest graded players in this game, starting off with their center, Garrett Bradbury, with a 92.7 grade. Wide receiver John Giles, 88.2. Cornerback DJ James, 88.1. Defensive tackle Milton Williams, the newest Patriot, 86 grade. And then their number 4 overall pick, Will Campbell, looked the part with an 85.4 grade in his first game as a Patriot. And Dalton, honestly, a lot of rookies looked really good for New England out there.
Yeah, they did. I want to start with Will Campbell, though, their left tackle. And I'll tell you what, you saw, especially in the run game in this game, he's got the level of nasty that Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels want on their offensive line. There was a couple of plays. They ran a pin pull concept with Campbell as the puller out on the edge. If he gets his hands on a defensive back, they're going for a ride. He did it twice in this game. I also thought he executed a couple of nice double teams with Jared Wilson playing left guard, which was interesting because I don't believe we saw that for a single snap last year. He was Georgia's starting center last year, and I just think you get hope on this offensive line when a guy like Campbell plays this well in his first game. Jared Wilson with a 60 PFF grade at left guard in his first game, which isn't terrible, all things considered, not playing the position before. Garrett Bradbury really good at center. This center and left guard situation for the Patriots is going to get interesting because you have these two guys, and then you also have Cole Strange, who's got experience at both spots also. So I don't know if we'll get some competition or if Wilson will still be the backup behind those two as the rookie, but it feels like the Pats' offensive line is filling in well. But Efton Chisholm, the undrafted receiver, played well. I thought Travion Henderson, obviously, the burners that he's got. He was at a 69.7 offensive grade, plus the kick return for a touchdown to open the game. Kyle Williams got open a couple of times, had, I believe, at least one, maybe even, was it one drop or two? I can't remember what I think it was at least one drop that Kyle Williams had, but I think that's all going to come with chemistry. You just see in general with New England a lot of young players playing well. That's exactly what you want to see. I think to me, especially on the offensive line, Campbell, Jared Wilson, Garrett Bradbury coming over from Minnesota. If they can get anything out of him at center and maybe put Strange back at left guard, or maybe Wilson will win one of the two jobs, but you suddenly you feel better about this offensive line situation. That's the biggest thing for me, but Will Campbell looked like a stud in this game.
He did, yeah. 90.4 run blocking grade, 0 pressures allowed on 8 pass blocking snaps, too. He looked fantastic. Travion Henderson mentioned the opening kickoff return to the house, too, so he looked really good out there, too, with his speed. Yeah, a really good night for Patriots rookies in this game, honestly. And then you look at the Commanders with their rookies. Trey Amos had a big game too, which is good to see because he was a guy that people thought could have been a first-round pick, the corner out of Ole Miss. He fell at day 2 of the draft. The Commanders scooped him up. They need him because that secondary last year really struggled. He looked pretty good in his first game out there. And then Josh Connerly Jr. too, only allowed 1 pressure in that game, a 69 overall grade. So overall, a solid game from Josh Connerly Jr., their first-round pick at right tackle, and a 77.7 run blocking grade too. Still a very encouraging game for Josh Connerly Jr.
Well, and switching sides also when you talk about playing a new position. We've seen this a lot in recent years. We've seen it in L.A. now with Joe Alt going to right tackle and now back to left tackle. But Connerly playing right tackle, I think he's in the mix for the competition for that starting spot. And then you mentioned Trey Amos as well. Didn't play a whole lot in this game, but turned in an 80 PFF grade. Had a good run stop down in the red zone that I thought was nice. I think you get Marshawn Lattimore on the outside in one starting spot. You're going to get Mike Sainer still in the slot, hopefully. But guys like Igbenogany, guys like Trey Amos, right? They're going to be fighting for starting roles at corner, and this cornerback group had the lowest coverage grade in the NFL last year. I think it's their biggest area where they can improve this season. If they can do that, they make life a lot easier on the front 7. And then I just think Amos, and look, there was a lot of people that thought Amos was a borderline first-round talent.
Yeah.
If he can come in and start for this team and again, move Sainer still back inside where he belongs, man, oh man, this secondary gets a lot better.
So even though they lost by 30 in this one, still a lot of encouraging signs for Washington in their first preseason game. Before we move on to the rest of these games, I want to first shout out that it was Mike Morris, not Mike Norris. I misspelled that in our Seahawks breakdown right there. So appreciate Divine Comedy in the chat kind of shouting that out right there. Mike Morris, not Mike Norris. And then before we move on, got to talk about the sponsor of the show. That is Fabric by Gerber Life. What does success for your child look like to you? A job they're passionate about, traveling around the world, or just being happy and comfortable? Whatever their journey, you're going to make it easier to achieve with a kid's investment account from Fabric by Gerber Life. By making a contribution to your child's future today, you can help give them the means to pursue their dreams, big and small. Fabric by Gerber Life was designed by parents for parents to make it easy to plan for and manage your family's financial path. With a kid's investment account from Fabric, you can start investing in your child's future today. It's all online. Manage your child's account and monitor their investments right from your phone. Unique gifting lists can be shared with family and friends, so instead of more stuff, they can grow your child's investments for their future instead. Start with just $20 with no contribution limits, tax advantages, and your funds are SIPC insured up to $500,000, plus no commission fees and just a low, flat monthly maintenance fee. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Start investing in your child today at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. That is meetfabric.com/PFFNFL, meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. Portfolios managed by Fort Washington Investment Advisors Incorporated. Additional services provided by Apex Clearing Corporation. All investing is subject to risk. Learn more at meetfabric.com. Next up in our Week 1 preseason recap is the Lions against the Falcons, with the Lions winning that one 17-10. Let's go over the highest graded players in this game, starting off with the victorious Detroit Lions. Number 1 is quarterback Kyle Allen, 91.2 grade. Edge rusher Nate Lynn, 87.2. Linebacker Zach Cunningham, 86.5. Cornerback Nick Whiteside, 84.6. And wide receiver Ronnie Bell, 83.6. Go over to Atlanta with their highest graded player, starting off with their edge rusher, Arnold Ebiketie, with a 94.6 grade for the former Penn State legend. Brandon Dorlus, 92.2 grade, the D tackle. Chris Blair, the wide receiver, 91.3. Josh Woods, the linebacker, 91.2. And their safety, DeMarco Helms, with an 90.3 grade. Dalton, what is the biggest takeaway from the Lions-Falcons game? Really, the Falcons, outside of Ebiketie, too, some intriguing rookies off the pass rush.
First things first, I just want to take a second and commend Dan Campbell and Raheem Morris for deciding themselves to stop this game early after the Maurice Norris injury. Because right. I thought, the league and the referee had told them, hey, we're going to continue on with this game. It's about 14 minutes left. And I thought they made absolutely the right decision to just decide, hey, we're going to run this clock out. And then obviously the league suspended the game. But all credit to those two head coaches for just doing the right thing in that situation, especially in a preseason game. As far as the way the 3 quarters of this game played out, no, I think the Falcons, one thing you're looking for this year, aside from the development of Michael Penix, is their pass rush. They had the second lowest pass rush grade in the league last year, but you look at the crew of defensive linemen that played well in this game. Arnold Ebiketie had 3 pressures and a sack. Brandon Dorlus had 3 pressures and a sack. Rook Ororo inside, 3 pressures. James Pierce Jr., 3 pressures. Jalen Walker didn't get any pressures, but he played all of his snaps off the edge, kind of giving us an idea of what his role is going to be, because we weren't sure if he's going to be a hybrid, is going to be a linebacker, edge defender. Thought he played well in run defense, and I thought that was going to be his biggest question going in, if he was going to be a full-time edge defender. So I think a lot of positives on this Atlanta defensive line, which is really the biggest missing piece on this team. Didn't even mention Braylon Trice, who's still coming back from the torn ACL. So I think all of a sudden, if you've got at least a crew of guys who's playing decent football up front, your pass rush gets a lot better, and they're hoping that Pierce and Walker especially can add that juice off of the edge.
Yeah, Pierce looked good, I thought. 75.1 PFF grade, 23% pass rush win rate in that game, too. Still needs to improve his play strength a little bit. Got held up by tight ends in some plays, but overall looked explosive off the edge, which I kind of saw out of Tennessee. I had him as a top 10 player in last year's draft. He fell to the end of the first round where Atlanta scooped him up, but that was a great pick by Atlanta. Even though it took a lot to trade up to get him, I still think he could be a really good player for the Falcons. And then Jalen Walker, 66.9 PFF grade on 19 snaps, 0 pressures like you mentioned too. He looked explosive, but he struggled with length, which is kind of an issue for him coming out of Georgia. Only had 32-inch arms, about an inch and a half shorter than the average NFL edge rusher. That looked like an issue a little bit in the game against Detroit. So it'd be interesting to see if he's a full-time edge rusher or plays a little off-ball linebacker too in that Atlanta defense. And I want to shout out too, on the other side, Tate Ratledge got really nice vertical displacement as a run blocker. He probably will be a starter on the interior offensive line for the Lions this year. I thought he looked pretty good, especially as a run blocker, which really, his calling card at Georgia was his pass blocking. He looked pretty good as a run blocker, though, in that game against the Falcons. And then Tyreek Williams, another first-round pick, he looked pretty good, too, with a 6.6 PFF grade. His power was evident on tape in the run game, too. But he had a 0% pass rush win rate, which is kind of what he was at Ohio State, too. A really good run defender, not much of a pass rusher. It's more of kind of a nose tackle in that Ohio State defense, too. So I want to shout out those two right there. And then Isaac Tesla also had a nice touchdown catch in that game.
I think big thing to note with Ratledge, 24 snaps, all of them at right guard. So there was some thought that he might be the guy to move inside to center. It seems like if that's the road they're going to go down with Ratledge, then Graham Glasgow is going to be the center with Ratledge and Christian Mahogany as the two starting guards there. But Ratledge at right guard in this game, maybe that means Christian Mahogany playing left guard in the regular season. It's something to monitor anyway just for their performance, but there was some suspense for a while about whether Glasgow or Ratledge would be the center.
Let's talk about the backup quarterback battle we might be getting in Detroit right now. A lot of people thought Hendon Hooker would be the favorite to win the job, still might be, but he didn't look great in that game out there, Dalton, the former third-round pick, and Kyle Allen, like we mentioned before, looks really good for the Lions.
Yeah, Allen's an experienced veteran backup who's been on several teams and was their highest-graded player in this game. And Hooker, look, it just hasn't quite worked so far, right? And I know he hasn't gotten really any game action, but we even saw last year in the postseason, instead of riding with Hooker as their backup, they signed Teddy Bridgewater straight out of coaching high school in Miami, and he was the one they went to when Jared Goff came out for a snap in the playoff game. So you wonder, unless Hooker plays a lot better the next couple weeks, only 3.8 yards per attempt in this game, 2 turnover-worthy plays, a 52 PFF grade, you wonder if time is starting to run out on that for Hendon Hooker in this offense, and if Kyle Allen's going to be the backup for this team this year.
Yeah, because he looked really good. Kyle Allen with 2 big-time throws, 1 turnover-worthy play, 91 PFF grade. Hendon Hooker, like you mentioned, a 52.5 PFF grade. So, yeah, big difference in that game. Maybe Kyle Allen could win that job from Hendon Hooker as the backup to Jared Goff in 2025. All right, next up in our preseason week 1 recap is the Giants against the Bills, with the Giants winning this one 34-25. Their highest graded player starting off with edge rusher Trace Ford, 84.3 grade. Offensive guard Aaron Stinney, 81.8 grade. Their first round quarterback right there, Jackson Dart, 80.7 grade. Joshua Zudu with a 79.8 grade. And DJ Davidson, the D tackle, 77.9. Let's go over to Buffalo with their highest grade player, starting off with their rookie D tackle, Deion Walker, 92.8 grade. The guy from Kentucky fell to the fourth round, I should say, of the draft. Quarterback Taron Johnson, 90.9 grade. Linebacker Matt Milano, 87.1 grade. Quarterback Mitch Trubisky, 86.9 grade. And then your guy, Dalton, Frank Gore Jr., the running back, 84.4 grade. Talk about him in a second, but let's first talk about the first-round quarterback, Jackson Dart, who looked really good, I would say, in his first game as a New York Giant.
Yeah, he looked solid. I thought he did a lot of the things a lot of his strong suits showed up in this game, right? When you talk about throwing balls outside the numbers, especially the touchdown throw, the go route in tight coverage into the end zone. Then you had, the explosive run that he had under pressure, taking off, getting north and south, getting a 19-yard rush for a first down. I think what you saw from Jackson Dart was a lot of his strengths. He's going to throw outside the numbers. He's an underrated athlete who's going to take off and run. It's a couple of inaccurate throws. I thought there was only maybe 1 or 2 good throws over the middle of the field. Sometimes the ball placement was a little shaky, but for the most part, in his first NFL action, I thought Dart looked really solid, and I think if Brian Daboll just continues for him to stick with his strengths for now as a young player, there's some things we know that, have to be filled in. It's obviously his college offense with Lane Kiffin was very much predicated on vertical balls outside the numbers, so there's a little more adjusting that needs to happen in some of those in-between areas and reading zone coverages, but I thought this was a positive performance for Dart. Also a 90.1 grade under pressure. That's really where you saw him shine line was the poise under pressure, taking hits, throwing the touchdown as pressure was barreling down on him. I thought Dart looked composed in this game. That's what you want to see in his first game.
His tape at Ole Miss, it's almost like you even see rushers come at him, which is like a double-edged sword, because he stands in there and takes the hits, but also sometimes you're like, dude, you got to see that guy coming too. But it was in that game, it actually was really good for Jackson Dart. What I love from what I saw from Jackson Dart in this game, he went through progressions in this game. You could see it on tape, honestly. So Jackson Dart, that was kind of the question mark for him coming out of Ole Miss, was, hey, a lot of hand-holding in that offense with Lane Kiffin coaching it up. It's not a lot of progressions in that offense. It took a while on some plays. He's still obviously getting used to doing it, but you could see him going from 1 to 2 to 3 and then making the throw. So that was very encouraging. It wasn't like it was just, okay, one read and throw it like it was at Ole Miss. He was going through progressions. He looked like an NFL quarterback, I thought, in this game. 12 for 19, 154 yards, and his touchdown pass was a big-time throw, too. It was a beautiful throw down the sideline for Jackson Dart. So, yes, very encouraging debut for Jackson Dart. I want to shout out this guy, Don, because I don't think he played enough snaps to make the list. Abdul Carter, the 3rd overall pick for the Giants, the other first-round pick for New York, he looked awesome. He only had 3 pass rush snaps. He had 3 pressures on those pass rush snaps against the Bills' starting offensive line, too. He beat Deion Dawkins, who's a Pro Bowl left tackle, a couple times, too. Abdul Carter looked phenomenal. Again, it was a very, very limited amount of snaps for Abdul Carter, but from what we saw on those snaps against legitimate starting caliber NFL offensive linemen, both at left tackle, and I think Osiris Torrance would be in the other one too, he looked legit, man.
Well, and I think all 3 of those reps are important. When you talk about beating a guy like Deion Dawkins twice, and then you talk about the ability to rush inside over the right guard, and all the same things we talk about with Abdul Carter that Micah Parsons can do on a weekly basis. I know, again, this is 6 snaps total, 3 as a pass rusher. It feels like this Giants pass rush is going to be really dangerous, doesn't it? With Carter flying all over the place, with Dexter Lawrence inside, with Kayvon Thibodeau, with Brian Burns, this is going to be a real issue for opponents. There's going to be teams that play the Giants this year, and I really think if your offensive line does not have their chin straps buckled in and they're not ready to go, boy, oh boy, it's going to be a long day for your quarterback. This pass rush with Abdul Carter added in is scary. I think it's going to be a real problem.
He looks phenomenal, honestly, and he could be, I think he's right now the favorite to win Defensive Rookie of the Year, and it makes complete sense with how good he looked in that first game against the Bills. Let's shout out a couple other rookies, Dolan, who were really good as pass rushers too. For Buffalo, Deion Walker and TJ Sanders on the interior were both pretty solid.
Yeah, Walker with the big pressure win on the inside against the Giants right guard, and then the batted pass to follow it up. TJ Sanders had a couple of pressures. I think that's what you're looking for. Look, these guys aren't going to play 60, 70 snaps a game. They're not going to start. The only 2 guys on the Bills defensive line who are going to play that much are Greg Rousseau and Ed Oliver. But if you get these sort of pass rush reps situationally 20 times a game, even out of Sanders and out of Walker, and we should mention Landon Jackson as well later on off the edge, Joey Bosa coming in there, Michael Hoyt coming in there. I think the Bills, they're going to be going for the depth approach on their defensive line, both inside and off the edge, but a good start for both Walker and Sanders in this game, and you like to see Matt Milano with such a high grade too. I know he's not a young player, but that's a guy I'm looking for to really bounce back at linebacker for him. So some good developments for the Bills this week on defense, and even Frank Gore Jr., it's a situation to watch because something we haven't talked about much is this James Cook contract situation. We don't know how long this is going to drag out. He suited up and warmed up with the team and then declined to play when given the opportunity. So that could be a battle, but I think the Bills have some really good depth at running back too, with Ray Davis, with Ty Johnson, and even with Frank Gore Jr. as the 4th guy.
Absolutely. We actually have a question in the chat. $5 super chat. Shout out to Sports Debate Arena, who made that contribution right there. He said, maybe too early, but would you start Stinney, Azudu, or Mbo at guard or center right now? All 3 of them looked really good in this game for the Giants. Would you make any changes to the interior offensive line after this one game for New York?
No, I doubt it. I mean, Stinney's the guy with a lot of experience, and he played pretty well in this game. But I think they're going to roll for now with the same crew that they had last year in Runyon, John Michael Schmitz at center, who needs to play a lot better, and then the veteran Greg Van Roten. But it's good to build depth. Aaron Stinney especially has always been a really good depth guy. I don't think you have a real competition on this offensive line right now. It seems like it's pretty set, and even I think Evan Neal's been getting reps at guard, but I'm pretty sure Runyon, Schmitz, and Van Roten are going to be the three starters for this team going in, and then we'll see where it goes if either of the veterans or even Schmitz at center struggles again.
I will say Marcus Mbow looked really good in his first game. The rookie out of Purdue, who was a 5th-round pick, who I thought could have been a day 2 pick of the NFL draft. Honestly, he had an 81.2 pass blocking grade. He had a few really nice reps you saw on tape too. So he's a guy that, right now is playing right tackle for the Giants, but I think he could be an interior guy long term because he doesn't have great length at tackle. So he's got to watch out for in the future, but I don't think he'll be a starter on the interior right now.
I do think the one thing with Bo, though, is that if they're moving Evan Neal inside to guard, you do need somebody behind Jermaine Illuminor and Andrew Thomas, who's had injuries the last couple of years as well. So you do need that depth at tackle. If he can provide that even better than Evan Neal did before, then you've got a case where he's got to roll as the swing tackle on this team, or even the swing just offensive lineman on this team anywhere you need him.
So to answer your question, no, we don't think they'll make any changes to the starting interior offensive line as of right now, but it's very good to have great depth on the offensive line because it's very rare you have the same 5 guys every single week for all 17 games of an NFL season. So it's good to have depth in case one of those guys goes down. And we saw in that preseason game, Giants might be having some pretty good depth on that offensive line right now. All right, let's move on to the next game that we're going to be talking about today. That is the Texans against the Vikings. So the Vikings winning that one 20-10. Let's go over the highest grade player, starting off with the Houston Texans. Their highest grade player was linebacker E.J. Speed with a 92 grade. Offensive guard Ed Ingram with an 84.4 grade. Running back Dare Ogunbowale with a 79.1 grade. Linebacker Casey Osai, 78. And tight end Cade Stover with a 76 PFF grade. Let's go over to the Vikings with their highest graded players in this game, starting off with offensive guard Joe Huber, the rookie player with a 94.7 grade in his first preseason game. Edge rusher Gabriel Murphy, 80.2. Michael Juergens, the center, 80 grade. Elijah Williams, the edge rusher, 79.9. And Jordan Addison with a 79.6 PFF grade. Dalton, we did see extended action a little bit from J.J. McCarthy, who missed all of his rookie year, obviously with the torn meniscus in his knee. Now he'll be the starting quarterback for the Vikings in year 2 now, the former first-round pick. What did you see from him in his first game of year 2?
Yeah, he's getting his feet wet. He's just trying to run the base concepts of Kevin O'Connell's offense here. And again, I think the play-action game is going to be key for him. Completed 3 of his 4 play-action passes with a 70 passing grade. Only 1 for 3 on non-play-action passes. I think, again, look, Justin Jefferson didn't play in this game. Don't believe T.J. Hawkinson played in this game. Addison is getting preseason reps because he's suspended for the first 3 games of the regular season, so that makes some sense. But no, McCarthy, I thought the ball placement was a little bit shaky. There was one miss, especially high over the middle, that you don't want to see, and I think he's finding his rhythm. I think we have to give him time. I know he looked great in the preseason game last year, but then he didn't play football for an entire year. So we got to be kind of patient with J.J. McCarthy, I think, through the preseason. And even in early games without Jordan Addison, that's a big loss for the first 3 games with the suspension. So I think O'Connell's really going to be managing him, especially with the run game and the play action. But it was good to see him just get out there and get some game reps in for the first time in a year.
Yeah, 4 for 7 for 30 yards. He scrambled for a first down too, which is nice to see his mobility after that knee injury, obviously last year. So again, it wasn't a great PFF grade by any means, but still encouraged by J.J. McCarthy, not hitting the panic button on him at all, because I think with that supporting cast, that offensive line and that receiving core, and of course Kevin O'Connell, who's one of the best play callers in the NFL and head coach, J.J. McCarthy should be just fine in Minnesota. Texans offensive line, Dawn, was kind of a mixed bag out there. You saw some guys like Ed Ingram played really well out there with an 84.4 PFF grade, and some guys like Blake Fisher who had a 27.4 PFF grade. It's kind of going to be a thing that makes or breaks, it feels like, the Texans season this year. And in this game, at least, we saw it was kind of a roller coaster.
Look, aside from this unit, the Texans are the most talented team in their division. The problem is when you have potentially the worst offensive line in football, it can ruin the whole operation, right? We saw that a bit down the stretch last season. But a guy like your starting center, Jarrett Patterson, with a 60 in this game. Juice Scruggs with a 44. Ariante Ursary, now it's his first NFL game, but a 52 there. Blake Fisher, like you mentioned, a 27 PFF grade. Look, I know it's the preseason. We don't want to freak out about much, but this isn't that dissimilar to what we saw late last year with this offensive line. And they desperately, obviously, Titus Howard didn't play in this game. He's really the best that they have right now. But they've got some potentially open competitions all across the board on this offensive line. But if they can't protect C.J. Stroud and they can't open holes in the run game, then a lot of the rest of the offense is going to cease to function, right? So this Texans offensive line, it's probably going to be something we're talking about every single week this season, and for good reason. You're right. It's the thing that could sink them from being a contender, or could even sink them from being the AFC South champion.
I mean, you talk about them right now. They had one of the best left tackles in football in Laramie Tunsil last year. They had the 12th worst pass blocking grade last year, and they had the 8th worst run blocking grade. So a lot of issues in the offensive line, and then you traded away your only all-pro player from that offensive line in Laramie Tunsil to the Commanders. A lot of question marks with Houston's offensive line right now. Yes, Ed Ingram did play very, very well, but the rest of it looked really up and down for Houston in the first preseason game for them. So a little concerning right now. Now I want to shout out another offensive lineman on the Vikings, Joe Huber. Really good player, honestly, because I liked him a lot coming out of college at Wisconsin, and he was dominant as a run blocker. He gave up a sack in this game, but still a 77.8 pass blocking grade overall for him. Really encouraging signs for him as, I believe, an undrafted free agent, right, coming out?
Yeah, I mean, look, they rebuilt their starting offensive line. We know what the interior there is going to look like with Jackson and Kelly and Fries, but it's always good to build depth, right? And if a guy like Huber emerges, and there's just something about Wisconsin offensive linemen where they're always good in the NFL, right? If Huber's another guy like that, and he can just give them solid depth in that system, because we know even, too, that Will Fries coming off an injury, Donovan Jackson's got to get his feet wet as a rookie. Ryan Kelly's had injuries in the past, so you never know when you need a guy like this, and it's always good. We mentioned the opposite on the other side with Houston, but it's always good to have offensive line depth, and if a young player steps up like that, then you really might have a long-term piece on your hands.
Let's move on to the next game. That is the Dallas Cowboys against the Los Angeles Rams, with the Rams winning that one 31-21 to start off with. The Cowboys, though, with their highest grade player, starting off with cornerback Israel Mukwamu with a 90.3 grade. Zion Childress, a safety, 77 grade. Maris Leafau with a 73.7 grade. Rookie tackle Johnny Cornelius, 72 grade. Another rookie, and Donovan Ezerako, 71.5 grade. Now over to the Rams with their highest graded player, our king, Willie Lampkin, 94.1 grade for what was the best guard in college football last year. Significant size concerns heading into the NFL draft. Doesn't matter, though, because he dominated in his first. We'll talk about him in just a second, though. David Questenberry, 87 grade. Cam Lampkin, 83.2. Charles Woods, 82.3. And Justin Dedich, 81.3. Dawn, got to look at the short king, putting on for all of us short kings out there. Willie Lampkin playing guard and center in this game for Los Angeles, and he was dominant.
Mostly center, yeah. I think that's eventually where he's going to settle in, kind of like Aaron Brewer for the Miami Dolphins. But this was maybe the most fun tape watch at anybody this week, because you wanted to see it. You wanted to see if a guy who's 5'11", the shortest offensive lineman ever, is going to have success at the NFL level. He was spectacular in this game. Max, 8 positively graded run blocks in this game out of, I believe, 23 reps. Second most in the NFL of any offensive lineman this week. Didn't allow any pressure in pass protection. And you know the most fascinating part of it to me, aside from him absolutely pancaking people up front, we know him from his days at Coastal and his days at North Carolina as a zone blocker. But the Rams have obviously gone to a lot of duo, a lot of man schemes up front, those double teams up front. 12 reps in a duo blocking scheme in this game for Lampkin. 6 positively graded run blocks.
Damn.
He has the idea of how to keep the leverage when he's running double teams with his guards, when he's blowing up nose tackles, when he's getting to the second level. He just knows what he's doing out there. I really, at this point, even one game in, I'm just going to say it. Either he needs to be on the Rams roster or he needs to be on somebody's 53-man roster. He was that good in college for 5 years, and obviously just because he's short, people aren't going to believe in him. This guy needs to be on an NFL roster. Absolutely. He was spectacular. He was the best player on the field in this game. It's unbelievable.
He was the highest graded guard in the Power 4 last year at North Carolina, the most valuable guard in the Power 4 last year, too, according to our wins above average metric. And we had some concerns, obviously, because he's 5'11", 290 pounds, like Dalton said, the shortest offensive lineman we've ever seen in the NFL. But I remember Dalton at the Senior Bowl when he was there, and you and I are like, I hope he plays well. Because he was such a great player in college, but we were both worried, right? Because he's going against Walter Nolan, going against Deion Walker, guys who are massive, and he held his own in the Senior Bowl and played really well, and now he's playing really well in the NFL.
And wasn't he like the last guy called to go? Wasn't he like a last-minute call?
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, even he hadn't played. He had 1 year, I think, of experience at center, and even after the Senior Bowl practices, we saw him staying out there with Riley Leonard, taking snaps on air at center just to continue getting better. This guy's got intangibles off the charts, and he's got a play style that's just so much fun to watch. He's the most aggressive guy on the field. It showed in this game. It was just spectacular. If he was going to make a case to make this roster, he did it this weekend.
I love Willie Lampkin. I feel like he'll be hopefully one of the best-selling jerseys in the NFL. I know offensive linemen never really get their jerseys sold unless you're, world famous like Jason Kelsey, but I feel like Willie Lampkin, which is a 5'11", 290 size.
The best thing about it is it's an offensive lineman's jersey that would fit people like us.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? We're maybe not. We're not 290, obviously, so maybe it's not the same exact jersey, but it wouldn't look crazy on us wearing an offensive lineman's jersey.
It rocks. This guy's 5'11", 290, and despite he's the most historic outlier we've ever seen at offensive line, and yet he's still kicking ass both in college football and now in preseason NFL too. Hopefully can sustain it in the regular season too. But yeah, really encouraging game from our king, Willie Lampkin, out there. Any other takeaways, Dalton, from this game?
No, I mean, I think the only thing for Dallas, look, a lot of backups played in this game. It was a game where not a lot of big names played. But for Dallas, I think the thing that concerned you still, and I'm going to talk about it a lot this year, is can they stop the run and the interior defensive line? On the flip side of Willie Lampkin dominating them, you look at guys, Mozzie Smith got some reps in this game, wasn't great. Some of the younger guys, Tommy Aking-Basotti and Jay Toya, I know they're late draft picks, but they struggled to stop the run against Lampkin and the Rams in this game. Somebody like Perrion Winfrey, a veteran guy, not great at 35 run defense grade. So both for Dallas, I think it's a story we're going to watch all year. The interior defensive line and at the linebacker position, can they stop the run? You're going to have Philadelphia running the ball. You're going to have Washington running the ball. There's a lot of teams in the NFC that want to run the ball. Dallas has to be able to stop the run or they'll be in the same spot they were in last year.
Absolutely. All right. That wraps up our Cowboys-Rams recap. Next up is the Steelers against the Jaguars, with the Pittsburgh Steelers winning 31-25. Let's go over to the highest graded Steelers in this game, starting off with their cornerback Cameron McCutcheon with his 93.4 grade, safety Juan Thornhill 88.2, tight end Darnell Washington 84.4, D tackle Yaya Black 82.3, and linebacker Malik Harrison 81.6. Now over to the Jaguars, their highest grade player, starting off with edge rusher Yazir Abdullah, 91.9 grade for him. Offensive tackle Chuma Adoga, 91.6 grade. Edge rusher BJ Green, 85.7. Quarterback Seth Hennigan, 83.7. Linebacker Ventrell Miller, 82.8. And Dalton, the biggest story, of course, is the Shohei Ohtani of football. Travis Hunter played 11 snaps at wide receiver and 8 snaps at corner. What did you see from the number 2 overall pick?
I mean, I think it just gives you a good idea of how Jacksonville is going to use him, right? Because you were waiting really for the usage even more so than the performance. Those 11 snaps on offense were with the first-team offense, the 8 snaps at cornerback with the second-team defense. So it doesn't seem like he's going to start both ways. They are going to give him a chance to play both ways, and I expect to see him playing on offense and defense in the regular season. But it kind of shows you a little bit receiver first, then we'll add him in at cornerback and see where it goes when we need him. But, it's a couple of catches for 9 yards. Liam Cohen really trying to work the underneath routes. He's going to emphasize yards after catch in this offense. Short work on defense, 1 missed tackle on Caleb Johnson, and run support. I know a lot of people are going to get on Travis Hunter for pretty much anything he does right or wrong, but let's just relax. He's a young kid getting on the field. He's playing both ways. He's doing things that have never been done before, but I do think as far as the usage goes, it just gives you an idea that, look, they want Travis Hunter to be their number 2 receiver, hopefully, and then on defense, if he can at least be a backup at corner, a rotational guy at corner, you have Jordan Lewis out there, you have Jerryon Jones, you have Tyson Campbell. You don't need Hunter to play every snap on defense. It just gives you an idea of what they're trying to do with him here.
Yeah, Travis Hunter currently has the 4th best odds to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, and he has the 4th best odds to win, or tie for 3rd best odds to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. So
I probably, based on what we've seen and even heard, and I know, again,
I would not bet on defense.
No, I wouldn't bet on the defensive side of that. They're going to give him the opportunities to play some on defense. He's going to play some, but not enough to win Rookie of the Year. Not when you're talking about Abdul Carter, Jahdae Barron, Jalen Walker, James, all those guys.
Abdul Carter's getting a pressure on every snap he's out there.
That'll do it.
He'll probably run away with Defensive Player of the Year if he does that.
I'm sure the Giants are asking, hey, if you could do that every snap this year, just have 600 pressures this year. That'll do.
It's just still crazy to look at the betting odds and see the same player in the top 5 of both Offensive Rookie of the Year and Defensive Rookie
it's fun. It's going to be fun to watch all year, and I can't wait to see it in a regular season setting to go, okay, this guy is really a key part of the game plan on both sides of the ball, especially offensively and what Liam Cohen's going to try to do with him and his after-the-catch ability. Brian Thomas Jr.'s after-the-catch ability. Obviously, they still want to run the ball some, but those two receivers are the most dangerous part of this offense.
Yeah, not much to glean off Travis Hunter's first game, but still it was cool to see him playing both ways out there at wide receiver and at corner. The Steelers, though, Dalton, really, we talked about this in their preview, they need their 2 first-round pick at tackles to really step up this year, and Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu. What did you see from them?
Yeah, both of them played 15 snaps early. It wasn't spectacular. Jones with a 61 PFF grade, Fautanu with a 48 PFF grade in his first action since last year's regular season. Had an illegal hands to the face penalty. I just think these two, you got to keep watching them and keep watching even these preseason reps, because they're going to be, I think they're the X factor to the entire Steelers season. I think if those two play well and live up to their talent level as first-round picks, you could see the Steelers actually make a pretty good playoff run, and they have to protect Aaron Rodgers, who's even less mobile than Russell Wilson. If they crash and you have protection issues, I'm not saying it's going to be disastrous like this because they're the Jets, but the Jets' biggest questions a couple years ago were at offensive tackle, and 4 snaps into the season, Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles because they had Dwayne Brown starting at left tackle. Now, these two aren't 40 years old like Dwayne Brown, but they do need to get better, right? And Fautanu coming off the knee injury, Jones struggling his first 2 seasons. I do think these two guys are the X factor to the entire Steelers season. Not quite dominant in this game, would like to see better.
Yeah, you want to see them both step up because you need both of them, considering Aaron Rodgers is not a very mobile quarterback anymore, and you spent first-round picks on both Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu. Now, Jones has been kind of disappointing so far in his career. Fautanu, unfortunately, played very little in his rookie year before going down with the season-ending injury, so you really want both those guys to step up to help out that offensive line that kind of needs it right now on the exterior, because the interior is pretty good for Pittsburgh. The exterior of the offensive tackles, that's really, really kind of struggle right now. All right, that wraps up our preview of the Steelers-Jaguars. Before we move on to the final 6 games of this preseason Week 1 recap, got to talk about the sponsor of the show. That is ZipRecruiter. Finding great candidates to hire can be like trying to find a parking spot on the weekend. You get so many resumes and not enough candidates with the right skills or experience, but not with ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter finds amazing candidates for you fast. And right now, you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter's smart technology identifies top talent for your roles quickly. Immediately after you post your job, ZipRecruiter's got powerful matching technology that starts showing you all of the qualified people for that job too. Ditch the other hiring sites and let ZipRecruiter find what you're looking for, the needle in the haystack. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Within the first day of using ZipRecruiter, you get a quality candidate for your job posting. Try it for free at this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/audio. Again, ZipRecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. All right, Dalton, the final 6 games in this preseason Week 1 review. Next up is the game where the number 1 overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft played, the Titans against the Bucs. Cam Ward making his debut in Tennessee. Their highest graded players in this one for the Titans: cornerback Davion Ross, 92.3. Rookie tight end Gunnar Helm, 79.9. Tight end David Martin Robinson, 79.5. Olisameka Udoh, the guard, 77.8. And cornerback Marcus Harris, 75.6. Next up with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, their highest graded players in this game: tight end Ko Kieft, 91.3. Cornerback Roman Parody, 90.3. Nick Jackson, the linebacker, 90. Quarterback Kyle Trask, 86.7. And edge rusher Warren Peoples, 81.9. So Cam Ward wasn't one of the 5 highest graded players for the Titans out there. But what did you see from him in his first preseason game?
Yeah, some good and some bad. I think there was moments where he was a little bit hesitant, really figuring out the timing of the offense, which is fine. I mean, you're going to get that in a guy's first preseason game, his first time stepping on an NFL field in game action, right? But there was some good throws, especially the 3 throws in the intermediate range he made to Calvin Ridley were excellent throws. 3 for 3 targeting Calvin Ridley, 2 for 5 targeting everybody else. I think that's going to be a theme that Ridley is going to have a really nice season with a better quarterback situation and a guy he appears to have early chemistry with. Ward's grade is dragged down by the 1 turnover-worthy play he had down in the red zone, misread a cover 2 corner on an out route. The receiver should have sat down. Ward should have thrown it to him sitting down, let him outside, misread the coverage. But those are things I think there were obviously reps that you look at. He's going to go back and look at the film and go, okay, I can get better with these things. I can get better with the reads, a little less hesitant, get rid of the football a little bit quicker. I even liked, it sounds like a basic fundamental thing, but when he was rolling out of the pocket, and instead of forcing it like we saw Cam Ward do so often, forcing the ball into tight windows in college, instead throw it away, live to play the next down. So I do think there were some ups and downs, but a lot to learn from, and that's really what you want in your first game.
Yeah, only a 54.1 passing grade, really got dragged down by that turnover-worthy play. He looked comfortable in the pocket, not very decisive. I think he could go through his progressions a little bit faster, but again, it was his first game out there in NFL action. So not a great grade from Cam Ward, but I still thought it looked pretty positive out there. Really, the 1 turnover-worthy play is what really dragged down his grade. Overall, other than that, he made some really nice throws, I thought, in that game, too. My guy, my king, Sean Tucker. I'm a Syracuse grad. Love Sean Tucker. Obviously, Bucky Irving is a star running back in that offense, but Sean Tucker looked pretty good out there, too. 50 rushing yards, Dalton. 53 rushing yards after contact. He had more rushing yards after contact than total rushing yards in this game. 4 broken tackles out there, too. He was the entire Syracuse offense a few years ago. Loved watching him there for my Orange. And now in the NFL, too, he actually had a kind of a breakout year a little bit last year in Tampa Bay. Excited to see him once again in the Buccaneers backfield.
Well, there's 2 reasons I wanted to highlight him here. One, he had a solid game behind the Bucs' backup offensive line, right? And that's big to see him go out there. And you mentioned the yards after contact being more than the total yardage. I mean, forcing 4 missed tackles. That's big time. Tucker flashed last year, especially in the game against the Saints when he just took over the second half. The other story coming out of this game is Rachaad White, his groin injury that's going to keep him out the rest of the preseason, and right now has him kind of questionable for week 1. If White does miss any regular season action, all of a sudden Sean Tucker is the second back behind Bucky Irving, and you're still talking about, look, obviously they trust Bucky Irving with a lot, but you want somebody who can spell him, especially in some of those short yardage situations. You don't want to wear out Irving early in the season, so if White is hurt for a period of time that extends into the regular season, Tucker's role on this team becomes really important.
And here I was thinking you were trying to be nice and throwing a Syracuse Orange there just for me. But, okay.
Oh, no.
Just for real reasons,
no, I
too.
would never.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No, absolutely not. Listen, I'm not just going to throw Syracuse guys on for you. I'm not just going to – look, you think if Trevor was here, I was just going to throw Kyle Trask in there to be nice? Come on.
That's true.
Sean Tucker was the actual story of this game, regardless of whether you were here or not.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it anyways. Before we move on, I messed up as a host, and I want to apologize to you guys right now. Dalton, we didn't even talk about the biggest story from that Steelers-Jaguars game. And shout out to Brian Dormandy in the chat for shouting us out. Cam Little, 70-yard field goal. 4 yards longer than any field goal in NFL history out there. My bad on that one, because it totally slipped my mind when we were going over the game really quickly. That I don't care, it's preseason. That counts. That is the longest field goal in NFL history. A 70-yard field goal out there for Cam Little was outrageous.
It feels like the one thing that should count. We should count in preseason, right? I just, and I
it's not like the fields get shorter in preseason.
I just keep thinking about how a couple of years ago Arkansas had him and Jake Bates on the same roster. Little kicking field goals. Bates was the kickoff specialist, right? Yeah. His story's well known, not kicking a field goal since high school, and then drilling all his kicks in the UFL. And now he's a Lions kicker. To have those two guys on the same team is ridiculous. But now, it feels like we're getting more and more of this. We've seen kickers try it. I think even Brandon Aubrey, didn't he try it like a 72-yarder in one game? Was it last year, the year before? You're just seeing these guys get stronger and stronger all the time. And we're going to get to a point where 60-plus, it's starting to get there, 60-plus feels normal.
Yeah.
Really. It's going to be a weapon. And if you have a guy who even has any shot at 70, I mean, even just for end of game, end of half situations like that, think about how that changes the dynamic. Just get to midfield.
I was just say, yeah. Can you imagine? It's like all you have to do is just get to your own 48-yard line. Think
about that. You're coming off a kickoff, touchback. It's at the 35. You need 15 yards to be in field goal range, and it doesn't sound. 20 years ago, you'd have been a lunatic for trying that, unless you had maybe Sebastian Janikowski. Maybe he might have been the only one. Now, it feels like there's multiple of these guys in the league that can at least give this a shot. And the fact that he hit it by as much as he did, that didn't skim over the crossbar either. That was maybe good from 75. That's ridiculous what these guys are doing.
The NFL record set by maybe the greatest kicker ever, Justin Tucker, that barely got in. That hit the crossbar and then bounced in. This one was...
No, this was clear. This is nuts what these guys can do kicking the ball.
I know preseason stats don't count usually. We're counting this one. 70-yard field goal, the longest field goal in NFL history. Outrageous from Jake Bates. Shout out to Chad for that one, because I would have been kicking myself after the show if I forgot to mention that 70-yard field goal from Jake Bates. That was the story of the weekend, in my opinion. This is an outrageous kick, 4 yards longer than anything we've ever seen in NFL history. So shout out to the chat for that one, because that was a bad miss by me in that one. All right, next up in this recap is Jets-Packers, with the Jets winning this one 30-10. Let's go over the highest grade players, starting off with your New York Jets, Dalton. Starting off with their fullback, Andrew Beck, with a 93.6 grade. Fullbacks are still people too here in the NFL. Donovan Edwards, 90.6 grade, the rookie running back out of Michigan. Jamin Davis, the linebacker, former first-round pick, 83.3 grade. Alan Lazard, 83 grade. And Quentin Skinner, another wide receiver, 81.2. Let's go over to the Green Bay Packers with their highest graded players in this game. Starting off with their edge rusher, Kingsley Enagbare with a 90.1 grade. Tyron Hopper, the linebacker, 88.6. Zach Tom, 81.6. Running back Amar Johnson, 79.5. And cornerback Kalen King, 78.9. Dalton, what did you see specifically, though, from the Jets' new quarterback in Justin Fields?
So I'm going to make 2 points here about the Jets. One, we'll go over Justin Fields because that's what everyone wants to hear. He managed the offense well, right? Led the long touchdown drive. I think the theme is taking what the defense gives him, right? He had the inaccurate throw to the outside, but throwing over the middle, taking the checkdowns to his fullback, Andrew Beck, and then running in for the touchdown from, I believe it was 13 yards out, was his best play of the night, right? Reading man coverage. Everybody on Jets Twitter is freaking out about the Isaiah Davis play where he dekes the defender into the end zone so Fields can run in. But I think you saw from the Jets mostly what their offense is going to look like. They're going to want to run the football with this offensive line. They're going to allow Fields to run when he needs to, especially in scrambling situations. They're going to have Garrett Wilson in motion a lot. That was a big thing for me in this offense, is that Garrett Wilson is going to be used like an Amon-Ra St. Brown, like a Jamar Chase, like a Justin Jefferson, all over the formations. It felt like he was in motion every single play. But I think the bigger overarching thing for me with the Jets as a team was, it's going to sound funny because I don't have a number for this, just the sheer effort level they came out and played with from the jump, because so often the last few seasons, they came out in the first quarter flat, and then it felt like they had to get kicked in the teeth to really kick it in gear by halfway through the second quarter. This team, I think what Aaron Glenn wants to put in is effort and discipline and playing your hardest football right from the jump, right when the first whistle blows, right? We didn't always get, especially last year from the Jets. They were so bad in the first quarter of games, especially offensively. I just like the effort level that they played with, the aggression they played with as a team. Aaron Glenn's still trying to reel in the penalties, which is a theme, but Fields, look, he took what the defense gave him, which is fine. You don't want to see him forcing plays in the preseason. He's obviously established as their starter. He's just trying to run the offense, but I like just in general the team effort that they gave in this game. And Glenn, bringing that same, let's remember, the Lions, their first year with Dan Campbell, they only won 3 games, but they played harder than all hell every week. They had max effort every single week, and they were just missing talent. I think Aaron Glenn is trying to instill that same thing with the Jets here. They played really hard in this game. That was good to see.
Yeah, really good to see. Fields looked pretty solid out there. Obviously had the rushing touchdown. Was it Isaiah Davis that did you see that?
Yeah.
So Isaiah Davis on the touchdown run from Justin Fields, he was running a route, obviously, and the linebacker was in man coverage on Isaiah Davis. Davis saw in the corner of his eye that Fields was taking off and running, not throwing the ball. But what Isaiah Davis did was run in the corner of the end zone, put his hands up as if he was going to try to catch the ball. The linebacker was chasing him, thinking, oh my God, he's going to try to catch this ball for a touchdown right now. Fields ran right behind the linebacker into the end zone. So just A-plus IQ from Isaiah Davis to take away that linebacker overall.
And I'll say this for Justin Fields throughout that entire drive, right? Even there, the awareness against man coverage, because that's when he's going to be most dangerous running the football as a scrambler. to do that. And look, previously in the drive when the Packers were running a lot of zone coverage, okay, stand in the pocket, stay patient. The offensive line, especially Armand Membu, looked really good in this game in pass protection. If you have 3.5 seconds back there against zone coverage when everyone's eyes are on you, then check it down and let the other athletes on the team do the job. Fields, look, it was one drive. It was a positive drive. There are a lot of fundamental things that you'd like to see. Look, he wasn't graded particularly high. He missed one throw. He had the rushing touchdown. It is what it is, small sample, but fundamentally sound drive. Offensive line looked good. I think you get an idea of what the Jets are at least trying to look like this year.
Offensive line looked really good actually out there because Braylon Allen had one run where it part of the Red Sea. It looked like the Packers
on the backside on the cut, and that was with John Simpson out of this game, Joe Tippmann playing left guard, and Josh Myers playing center. Tippmann really washing down that backside. No, it's you get the feel they're trying to be physical with this O-line, trying to be physical on defense, especially, and a lot more aggressive with man-to-man coverage. I think Aaron Glenn is putting his stamp on his team early.
Any Packers takeaways you had in this game?
Not a whole lot. I mean, look, the offense, the starting offense wasn't out there a whole lot. One guy I did want to point out because the Packers are looking for pass rush help. Really liked the game that rookie Barron Sorrell had. 87.9 pass rush grade was the highest on the team. Couple of knockdowns, a 28.6% pass rush win rate is very good. One of the weaknesses of this Packer defense last year was just rushing with four. We know Jeff Hafley can blitz and draw it up and get unblocked pressures from extra defenders, but when they had to send four last season, they were a bottom 8 pass rushing team. If a guy like Sorrell can come in, or even Kingsley Enagbare can come in and give them situationally some good pass rush reps where they don't always have to blitz, because we know what their questions are at cornerback, I really think that's a positive development. I expect to see more of Barron Sorrell next week.
I do too. Yeah. So overall, great game for the Jets. Obviously, beating the Packers by 20 points in this one, 38-10. Next up in our recap is the Chiefs and Cardinals, with the Cardinals winning this one 20-17. Let's go over to the highest graded players, starting off with the Kansas City Chiefs. Cornerback Joshua Williams, 81.5. Edge rusher Cooper McDonald, 80.6. Offensive guard Mike Caliendo, 80. Cornerback Ajani Carter, 79.1. And tight end Jared Wiley with a 78 grade out there. Next up is the Arizona Cardinals, starting off with Darren Hall with a 93.5 grade. The corner, Keaton Crawford, the safety, the rookie safety actually, 92.5 grade. Running back Zonovan Knight, 83.1 grade. Michael Walker, the linebacker, 79.4. And Kion Barrs, the D tackle, 76.3. Don, I will say right now, Josh Simmons out there, the rookie first-round pick, left tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs, looked impressive, I thought, out there. 11 snaps out there, 80.1 pass blocking grade, 0 pressures allowed. He explodes out of his stance. He looked like he moved like a tight end out there, which is good to see considering he had a major knee injury that ended his year last year too at Ohio State. Josh Simmons, though, he moves differently than most offensive linemen. There's still some play strength concerns with him right now, but I thought he looked really good against Arizona.
Yeah, with his footwork, he's always been more of a finesse player, but his footwork looked really good in his first game action off of the injury. 7 pass blocking reps, no pressures allowed, and you mentioned it. It was just a look, right? And I think the idea that he comes out in this game off that injury and he takes the 11 snaps with the starting offensive line, he's their left tackle. There's no question about it. There's going to be other arguments about who's playing right tackle, who's playing left guard. Is it Jalen Moore? You've got Kingsley Suamataia. You've got Jawan Taylor on the right side, but I don't think at this point there's a competition at left tackle. I think Andy Reid feels really good about what he's got on Mahomes' blind side there with Simmons. He's going to get more reps. Obviously, you got to see how the knee holds up and how the play strength holds up when it comes to getting more reps and 70, 80 reps a game. But I think Simmons in his first action, just to see him out there with the starters, and really, if you didn't know it was him out there and you weren't watching a rookie out there, you really wouldn't have noticed. And that's really the best thing you could say about an offensive lineman.
When I was watching the tape on him, if you compare him to even a guy like Jawan Taylor, who's a long-term starting right tackle in the NFL, starting right tackle for the Chiefs right now, he explodes out of his stance so much faster than any other offensive lineman you see right now. So it was really incredible to see Josh Simmons, how explosive he was. His footwork was phenomenal too. I don't think you'll ever see Josh Simmons get beaten by speed. Now, maybe some power rushers could be a problem for him in the NFL as he develops his strength a little bit, but you will not see Josh Simmons being around the edge with speed very much, considering how explosive he is as a left tackle. So Again, against second-string defensive lineman, that is a good point the chat made right there. But still, you want to see him just look the part. Josh Simmons looked the part as a first-round pick, coming off a knee injury, too, from last year. Anything else that stands out from the Chiefs-Cardinals game?
No, I think the Cardinals, there wasn't a whole lot. I know there's the interception heard around the world from Kyler Murray, and everybody's freaking out about that. But let's not freak out about one bad throw because he completed every one of his other passes in the game. So I'm not going to freak out. Guys throw bad interceptions. It happens. Don't jump ship on Kyler Murray in preseason week 1 because, well, he's your only hope of making the playoffs. Otherwise, I think you just have a relatively open competition for the Cardinals at linebacker. Mac Wilson with a 48 grade in this game. Akeem Davis-Gaither with a 60. Cody Simon, 69. Michael Walker, 79. I think that, to me, is the weakest layer of the Cardinals' defense right now is at linebacker level. So I'm curious to see how, as the season goes on, how many reps each of these guys are getting or how it's going to rotate at linebacker.
Yeah, don't panic about Kyler Murray. He's going to be just fine.
Guys make bad throws. If he had done it 3 or 4 times, I might worry a little bit. But I will say this.
It's a big year for him, though.
In fairness, it's a huge year for Kyler Murray, and we've called him basically the X factor of their team. They can run the ball. Their D-line's a lot better. I really like what they have. They're going to have to start Will Johnson at corner, but I have no issue with that. He should have been a first-round pick. Kyler Murray's up-and-down nature is going to be the thing that decides this year for
Will Johnson has looked phenomenal in every clip I've seen of him in practice.
I'm sure he does. Yeah, that does not surprise me at all. I mean, you have a top 15 talent that dropped to number, 47?
Yeah.
And the Cardinals got a steal, an absolute steal.
Dalton and I are actually later on in the PFF College Football Show going to do a draft of guaranteed first-round picks, and we did it last year too.
Which one of us had him?
I had him last year.
Okay,
so I got screwed because Will Johnson should have been a first-round pick last year. I got screwed out of it. I lost a couple points because of it too, but Will Johnson should be a great player in Arizona, and they had a great game against the Chiefs with a 20-17 victory over the defending AFC champions. All right, next up is the Broncos and 49ers. The Broncos really walloping the 49ers, 30-9, the final score there. Starting off with the Broncos, their highest grade players. Edge rusher Jonah Ellis, 89.7. Quarterback Jared Stidham, 87.7. Offensive guard Calvin Throckmorton, 86.2. Cornerback Joshua Pickett, 84.2. And offensive guard Nick Gargiulo with an 84 grade in this one. Next up is the 49ers with their highest graded players. Cornerback Trey Brown, 93.5. Linebacker Luke Gifford, 89.8. Safety Jalen Mahoney, 87.7. Cornerback Chase Lucas, 79.4. And offensive guard Connor Colby with a 77.8 grade. Dawn, for you, what stand out in this Broncos victory of the 49ers?
I'm going to go to the Denver side here. You want depth in the secondary? Man, oh man. Okay, so Jaquan McMillan, the veteran slot corner, 91.5 coverage grade and an interception. Second-year man, Chris Abrams-Drain, 90 coverage grade and a pass breakup. Jahdae Barron, playing mostly in the slot, a little bit outside, but mostly in the slot, 78.5 coverage grade and 2 stops. The only guy that really struggled was Riley Moss, and I think, as far as playing time, Barron is going to play a lot because of his versatility inside or outside, but when you talk about being competitive for reps with McMillan, with Abrams-Drain, with Riley Moss, you've got a lot of depth to work with in this Denver secondary. It's not just top-end talent like Pat Surtain and Brandon Jones, and obviously Jahdae Barron, too, as a first-round pick, but they've got a lot of pieces to work with where they could even sustain an injury or two, especially at cornerback. I think this secondary is going to be a lot of fun. I know that I could say for certain they're a top 5 secondary in the league.
Yeah.
They might be number 1 by the end of the year, both because of the defensive player of the year on one side, and then all of this talent they have at cornerback on the other. And you and I were both big on Chris Abrams-Drain coming out of Missouri too, and he didn't get much action last year and played well, but you've got him, you've got Barron flying all over the place. He looked like the usual Jahdae Barron we saw, especially last year at Texas. You have to love the way this Broncos secondary is coming together.
And a pretty good safety duo too with Brandon Jones and Talanoa Hufanga too. And you mentioned all those really impressive games by the cornerbacks, and that doesn't even include the defensive player of the year in Pat Surtain.
Right.
So it's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean they're loaded. Denver's secondary is absolutely loaded. They are going to be a serious problem to throw against this year. And you saw Nick Benito was dominant. Jonah Ellis was their highest graded player. The pass rushers, we know Zach Allen just got the big contract extension. John Franklin Myers is still there. Boy, if they just fill in at linebacker, if Dre Greenlaw and Alex Singleton look like they're supposed to look like at linebacker, good luck. I honestly, good luck with this Denver defense, especially going into Denver and the altitude. They're going to be a real problem defensively.
I'll go to San Fran because they're rookies who they need on this defense this year. didn't look great in this one. Alfred Collins with a 40.6 grade. CJ West, 40.1 grade. Nicholas Martin, 31.6 grade too. We talked about it before. The 49ers might have 3 rookie starters on their defensive line this year. Nick Bosa might be the only non-rookie starting on the defensive line for San Francisco, but not if Alfred Collins and CJ West struggled like they did in this preseason.
Well, and Mykel Williams missed this game with an injury, so he didn't get any reps. And look, you cut him a little slack, a little bit, because they were playing. They got some reps against Denver's starting offensive line, which is one of the best in football. So I'm sure Alfred Collins in his first game did not want to see Quinn Miners lining up across from one of the best guards in football. But no, I think what it really is, more than panicking about these guys, or anything like that, is it's going to take time.
Yeah.
Right? You've got Alfred Collins, a second rounder. CJ West was a fourth rounder. Nick Martin, a third rounder. They've got so many young players in this defense. They're trying to build that depth around Nick Bosa and Fred Warner and some of the other stable guys that they have, that especially on the defensive line, I really think it's going to take some time. You're not going to see these guys come out week one and play like superstars. And I think it was you could almost consider it a good, like, hey, welcome to the NFL, having to play against a team like this. And Sean Payton likes to play his starters in the preseason. Good for them to get reps. Obviously, they weren't great reps, and it's, again, welcome to the NFL. But I think it's a lesson in, if we think this Niners defense is just going to completely turn around right away, they're really, really young. They're going to need some time. It might take a few weeks or even a couple of months into the season before we start to really see them, especially in run defense, turn back the clock to what they used to be.
Yeah, definitely. All right, next up in our recap, the penultimate game in this recap, Dolphins against the Bears. Again, another tie, 24-24, because there was no overtime in preseason. Let's go over the highest graded player, starting off with the Miami Dolphins. Wide receiver, Taj Washington, 90. Cornerback, Isaiah Johnson with an 85 PFF grade. Offensive tackle, Patrick Paul, who they might need this year to play left tackle for them, 84.7 grade. Cornerback, Ethan Bonner, 84.5. And linebacker, KJ Britt, 83.9. Let's go over to Chicago with their highest grade player, starting off with the edge rusher, Austin Booker, 95.3 grade for him. We'll talk about him in just a second. Edge rusher, Jamari Croma, 87.8. Quarterback, Case Keenum, 86.9. Linebacker, Power Echols, 85.7. And D-tackle, Tano Pasonio with a 79.4 grade. Dawn, what stood out to you in this Dolphins and Bears game?
Okay, so let's start with the positive real quick. Kenneth Grant had a nice first day. I think this Dolphins defensive line, other than maybe Hill and Waddle, I think this Dolphins D-line is probably the best part of their team. When you look at Grant and Sealer, Chop Robinson, Chubb coming back, Phillips coming back, all of that, right? Their defensive line is probably the best part of their team. Patrick Paul playing well, especially in the run game, which is kind of new because we know him as the prime pass protector from Houston. He could be a big factor, obviously, at left tackle this season. There were some positives in this game for Miami. I got to be honest, I know it's hard to overreact. It's really hard to not overreact, I should say, to quarterback performances and preseason week one and all of this. But should we just be more worried than ever if Tua gets hurt again that the Dolphins are going to crash? Because you look at Zach Wilson and Quinn Ewers in this game, 10 for 27. They took 6 sacks between them. 1 big-time throw from Wilson, 3 turnover-worthy plays, combined 31.4 passing grade. I mean, are they just going to, when the Browns cut Tyler Huntley, are they just going to sign him again? Because right now, if Tua gets hurt and he's only played 17 games once in his career, do we really feel any good about Zach Wilson or Quinn Ewers playing in his place? Because Wilson, look, you know me, Jets fan, had faith in him, thought he was the right guy to draft at the time. He's just missing the same old throws he always misses, right? He's trying to aim the ball. He doesn't trust it. And neither one of them, to me, it'll be a huge problem for both of them. Neither one of them looks like they want to get hit at all.
No.
They're constantly falling away from throws. You know, Ewers is out there, you know, so he's kind of locked into his first read without play action. As we saw at Texas, it can be a struggle. I just, you know, again, you don't want to take too many takeaways, especially about backup quarterbacks. But the Bears, the only starter they played this entire game on defense was Tyreek Stevenson, and he only played 15, 16 snaps. So you're playing against the Bears' second and third stringers, and neither one of these guys looked very good at all. If Tua were to get hurt, which obviously we've been known to see him do that for most of his career, it's hard to have faith in Quinn Ewers or Zach Wilson from what we saw yesterday.
Just the pocket presence for both of them. You mentioned the 6 sacks right there. It was a big issue for Zach Wilson, and we didn't know Zach Wilson's pocket presence was a big issue considering at BYU, that offensive line was outrageously good at BYU in the group of 5 level, right? He had clean pockets for days back there at BYU. Quinn Ewers, we saw it. Right, at Texas last year, especially when, even though he had one of the best O-lines in the country, he still took a lot of pressures and a lot of sacks that were his fault, honestly, right? So Quinn Ewers' pocket presence is a problem too. It's why he was a 7th-round pick in the NFL draft, and I'm with you, man. With Tua missing multiple games in 3 of the last 4 seasons, you're really worried about who's the backup quarterback right now, and I'm with you. I don't have much faith in either Zach Wilson or Quinn Ewers right now. That could be a huge problem considering Miami needs to have a big year this year, it feels like, and Tua Tagovailoa, how unreliable he's been with his health, you need a good backup, and it doesn't seem like Miami's got that.
If these two look like this for the next 2 weeks, I firmly believe they will go when the Browns likely cut Tyler Huntley, that they will go and re-sign Tyler Huntley because he didn't play bad football for them last year. This was ugly. This was ugly from the Dolphins' backup quarterbacks, and they've got 2 weeks to fix it, or they're going to be hunting for somebody else.
If Cleveland keeps 3 of them, you could.
Well, okay, so then you talk about, yes, is it Kenny Pickett? Is it Dylan Gabriel? Is it Shedeur? For any of those guys, I think there's going to be teams looking at this Cleveland overload on quarterbacks and going, hey, we could take. But I just think Huntley because of the familiarity, right?
I get that,
and obviously, I think he's the least likely to stay with the Browns anyway.
Yeah.
But either way, Zach Wilson and Quinn Ewers, I think, have 2-3 weeks to fix this because if it's more of the same that they showed in this game against the Bears, the Dolphins are going to be hunting for a new backup.
Let's get a little more optimistic here because Austin Booker was awesome out there. And Chicago, this is a guy that Chicago thinks maybe down the line could be a starting edge rusher for them because of how good he was at Kansas. If he's playing this well right now, Dalton, he could be a guy that really contributes to defense this year.
You felt like when we were scouting him last year coming out of Kansas that he had the tools, right? He had the pass rush arsenal, all of that. He just needed to get a little bigger. He needed to put some weight on, right? Because he was playing really light. You could see even had kind of a thin lower body. Man, oh man, did he show you everything in this game. 7 pressures, 94.7 pass rush grade, 3 sacks, including a strip sack of Quinn Ewers. Austin, look, the Bears, they're looking for pass rush juice here, and obviously Dennis Allen's going to blitz more than Matt Eberflus did, but, they signed Dayo Odeyingbo, they've got Montez Sweat, you got some Grady Jarrett and some guys on the inside, but if Booker can come in and be even just a situational pass rusher, anything close to what he was in this game, I think he's earned some reps in this game. He was the best player on the field. The Dolphins had no answer for him whatsoever.
No, I did. He was phenomenal out there, and you really hope he could develop into a starting caliber player for the Bears down the line, and again, if he's playing like that in the preseason, he should be getting a lot of snaps in the regular season for Chicago's defense. Final game in our preseason week 1 recap is the Saints against the Chargers, with the Chargers winning 27-13. Let's go over the highest graded Saints first, though, starting off with cornerback Ugo Amadi with an 82.8 grade. Rookie linebacker, our king, Danny Stutzman, with a 79.2 grade. Safety Jonas Sanker, 78.2. Edge rusher Chris Rumph II, 76.9. And D-tackle Jonah Williams with a 76.2. Now over to the Chargers, their highest grade players. Cornerback Eric Rogers, 96.6 grade for the rookie cornerback. Safety RJ Mickens, 93 grade. Tight end Tucker Fisk, 86.8. D-tackle Jamari Caldwell, 85.7. And edge rusher Caleb Murphy with an 85.3 grade. Obviously, Dalton, the biggest storyline, like the Colts, is going to be who is the starting quarterback for New Orleans in week 1. Will it be Spencer Rattler or will it be rookie second-round pick Tyler Shuck? What did you see from those two in the week 1 of preseason?
So I think what you saw first and foremost was a very conservative nature from both of them, right? A whole lot of checkdowns, especially from Shuck. It seemed a bit hesitant to throw the ball down the field, especially Shuck, right? So I think you have that. There's been reports over the last week or two of practice out of New Orleans that Rattler looks like the better quarterback in practice right now. He's got obviously the year of experience under his belt. Shuck trying to figure things out at the NFL level, and he won round 1 in preseason action. Look, 68.4 passing grade. Didn't do anything flashy. Made a couple of nice throws. There was a couple of drops along the way also, but Shuck, the bad pick 6. He came back with a big-time throw on a double move and had the touchdown on the go route there, but for the most part, when you watch Tyler Shuck, it looked hesitant. It was check down after check down after check down, which is great, but eventually you have to get out there and attack the defense. The pick six was bad, staring down his first read to the outside that Eric Rodgers housed for a touchdown. So I think round one went to Rattler, but I come out of this game really not feeling great about any outcome here for the Saints with this quarterback situation. Obviously, Chris Olave didn't play, Rashid Shaheed didn't play. They didn't have their primary receivers out there, but I don't come out of it feeling any different about either guy, really. I thought Shuck, I mean, there was other guys in this draft that I liked better than Tyler Shuck. Spencer Rattler, obviously, as a second-year, fifth-round guy. This Saints offense is going to be a work in progress, I think, to put it nicely. We'll see what the next 2 weeks look like for both of them, but Rattler looks slightly better, but I don't think either one of them was great.
No, it could be a long year for New Orleans this year, and it could be, once again, in the market for a quarterback in 2026, potentially, with that class coming up, too. So I agree with you. I thought Rattler looked solid out there. He still holds onto the ball for a very long time. He had over a 3.2-second average time to throw in that game. And then Shuck, too, you had the bad pick six, but overall was solid after that, too. So I don't feel great about either of them. If I had to make a prediction right now, I think it will be Spencer Rattler week one for the Saints, but that could change week to week in New Orleans right now, considering those two are in a very heated battle for QB1 of the New Orleans Saints. One shout out the rookies for the Chargers right now. Eric Rodgers, 96.6 grade, the cornerback for them. 2 picks, including a pick six for the rookie. 5 targets, 0 catches allowed. Our guy, R.J. Mickens from Clemson, the safety, 2 targets, 1 catch allowed for only 5 yards. Also had a pass breakup and a forced fumble, too. And then Jamari Caldwell, 4 tackles, a sack. He drew a holding penalty, too, and an 81.7 run defense grade, which is the best on the team. Just 3 really good defensive rookies that we saw for Los Angeles.
Absolutely. I mean, whatever Jesse Minter and this Chargers defensive staff is doing with these corners. We saw it last year with Tarheeb Still. We see it with Cam Hart. Now it's with Eric Rodgers, the undrafted man out of Rutgers. I mean, what a terrific game. I think he was the highest graded player in football this week with the 2 interceptions. R.J. Mickens is a guy that we absolutely love. I think he's a perfect fit in this defense. I really think even as a 7th-round pick, he's going to make this team. And then Caldwell, I thought it was just a spectacular player to add as a replacement for Poona Ford, especially in run defense. But he had 4 tackles in this game. He had a sack, like you mentioned. He drew the holding penalty on the Saints starting left guard, Trevor Penning, right? So he's adding even problems as a pass rusher, and then he was their highest graded run defender. So a couple of things I want to talk about with the Chargers. 1, the rookies, especially these late round rookies, look good early on. 2, a couple of solid performances from Trey Lance coming in there. And the one thing that I like as a fit with Lance is the offensive coordinator, Greg Roman, especially, right? We've seen him have success with these types of quarterbacks. Honestly, you tell me, but same team, but I think Lance's play style to me is very similar to that of Colin Kaepernick back in the day, who Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman had. Look, is he any threat to Justin Herbert? Absolutely not. He makes $60 million a year or whatever. But I think to have Lance as your backup in this offense with a guy like Greg Roman and a guy like Jim Harbaugh who knows how to use a player like that with his dual threat abilities, I think Lance could very well be the backup for this team over Taylor Heineke this year. For sure. And then I think the last thing, and this is not a story about the game, but we just need to mention now the obstacle of not having Rashawn Slater, who tore a patellar tendon in practice. And now Joe Alt's going to move back to the left side where he was so good in college. He was best tackle in the country. And Trey Pipkins is going to play on the right side where he's got some experience. He's at least been a serviceable starter in the past, both at guard and tackle. But that's really the big story for the Chargers over the past week is Slater's injury. He was the 2nd highest graded offensive tackle in football last year. You lose a guy like that, it's a monumental loss for your offense, I think, especially in the run game. The fact that Alt can slide over and play left tackle and basically be right away comfortable there is great, but it changes a little bit of your offensive outlook, losing a guy like Slater.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's one of the best tackles in football right now, and that pick of Joe Alt last year that a lot of people didn't love because they wanted to get like a Malik Neighbors, it looks even better now considering Slater's injury. So it is a big loss for Los Angeles, and Trey Lance has looked great so far through 2 preseason games. He played a lot in the Hall of Fame game, obviously, against the Lions, and then played a lot in this one, too, against the Saints. And, for one quarterback, the number 2 overall pick kind of flamed out in Zach Wilson in the 2021 NFL Draft. The number 3 overall pick, who also flamed out in San Francisco, and Trey Lance, he looked a lot better in preseason than Zach Wilson did. So good to see him do well out there, too. But that kind of wraps up our preseason week 1 recap, going over all 16 games, the highest grade players, and the biggest storylines from all 16 of those games. Tomorrow, we'll have another show on this channel going over the AFC South, previewing every single team in depth in that division live on this show at 10 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. For Dalton Wasserman, for producers Eli and Mike Quinn back there, I'm Max Chadwick. We'll see you guys tomorrow with our full AFC South preview.